Across the country and around the world, millions are rising up against power, against silence, and against the unraveling of democracy. From massive protests and economic shockwaves to sweeping policy changes and global tensions, the headlines aren't just changing, they're igniting. This is your urgent update on a world in motion. Millions of Americans filled the streets this weekend in what organizers called the hands-off Layoffs protests, one of the largest mass mobilizations in recent years. Protesters rallied in over 1,000 locations across the country, and even abroad in cities like London and Paris, voicing outrage at what they described as the Trump administration's sweeping assault on democracy, civil rights, and public services. The demonstrations, organized by nearly 200 advocacy groups, called out not only President Donald Trump, but also billionaire Elon Musk, with widespread demands to reverse federal cuts to Social Security, education, and healthcare. In New Orleans, Boston, Chicago, and beyond, the message was clear. The American people will not be silent. Representative Jamie Raskin called the administration's policies dangerous, warning, "No moral person wants an economy-crushing dictator." While Trump remained at a golf tournament in Florida, protesters across the globe condemned what they saw as a brazen power grab. Nearly 600,000 people officially signed up to attend, with many more joining spontaneously in what organizers called a stand against attacks on our democracy, our jobs, our privacy, and our services. Meanwhile, Wall Street endured its worst trading day since 2020. The S&P 500 dropped 6% and the Dow Jones fell 5.5% after China retaliated against Trump's sweeping tariffs. Over $6 trillion in value was wiped out during the sell-off. Despite this, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent defended the administration's approach, insisting on national television that there's no reason to expect a recession. He described the tariffs as a one-time price adjustment and suggested any economic instability was temporary. Still, the tariffs are estimated to cost American households nearly $80 billion during Trump's first term. In international developments, Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, announced he will step down as chairman after more than 5 decades. Schwab, who already stepped down as CEO in 2023, made the decision amid an internal review following accusations of racism and gender bias. The investigation found no wrongdoing, but the forum is also seeing other leadership departures as it begins its search for a successor, with the transition set to conclude by January 2027. Back in Washington, the Department of Health and Human Services has terminated the entire federal staff of its Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. The sweeping layoffs were part of a broader workforce reduction, impacting 10,000 staff. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said the agency is refocusing its priorities to combat chronic disease. But with $400 million in unallocated LIHEAP funds, critics warn the cuts could leave vulnerable households without essential heating and cooling support. President Trump also signed an executive order ending the de minimis exemption for low-cost imports from China and Hong Kong. Starting May 10th, packages under $800 in value will face a 30% tax or a $25 fee per item, rising to $50 by June. The administration says the change targets deceptive shipping practices and aims to curb illegal drug trafficking. Critics, however, warn that the rule will hit low-income consumers the hardest, particularly those who rely on budget-friendly retailers like Shein and Temu. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has quietly implemented a strict new policy banning American personnel in China from entering romantic or sexual relationships with Chinese citizens. The directive, enacted by former Ambassador Nicholas Burns, stems from growing concerns about foreign intelligence threats. Existing relationships may be exempt, but those denied an exemption must either end the relationship or leave their post. Security analysts say the move is a response to the growing sophistication of Chinese intelligence operations. In Wisconsin, voters overwhelmingly approved a constitutional amendment requiring photo ID to vote. Although the state already had such a law, this amendment locks the requirement into the state constitution. Support for the measure crossed party lines, with nearly 3/4 of voters in favor. Backers argue it's a step toward election security, while critics caution it may suppress turnout among marginalized groups. Across the Atlantic, British citizens are being advised to prepare a 3-day survival kit amid concerns that Russia may sabotage gas pipelines. The European Union is now encouraging all member nations to equip households with emergency supplies to handle future disruptions. Experts say it's a necessary step for energy security in an increasingly unstable global landscape. In Texas, U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. addressed the growing measles outbreak after a second unvaccinated child died. With nearly 500 cases reported nationwide, CDC officials warn that if the outbreak continues, the U.S. could lose its measles elimination status, originally achieved in 2000. The CDC's Dr. Manisha Patel emphasized that the MMR vaccine remains the best protection against the disease. And finally, controversy is brewing over changes to the National Park Service's webpage about the Underground Railroad. The new version removes Harriet Tubman's image and reduces mentions of slavery, shifting the focus instead toward interracial cooperation. Critics argue the edits sanitize history and undermine the painful reality of slavery and systemic racism. Civil rights icon Elizabeth Eckford of the Little Rock Nine responded, saying, "We can never have true racial reconciliation until we honestly acknowledge our painful but shared past." That's all for tonight's news update. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to monitor these stories and bring you the latest developments. Stay safe, stay informed, and have a good night. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.